Brittany, yo, I cannot believe I finally have you on the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast.
Hey, Trent. Yeah, thank you for
Hey,
having me.
Trip.
This is the latest party in the in the country, child. I'm been waiting
Hello.
outside the club trying to get in. Okay.
Listen, I know we about to have a really good time. First of all, what's on your hoodie? Because you always be having the merch and
Okay. So this it says Noir is what I'm wearing today. It's from the Jolie Noir collection with Target. You know they do their
Okay.
Black History Month Target drop
Oh, that's
every
dope.
year, and Jolie Noir, they're two black women. They're partnered, and this is their brand. It's a sweatsuit. What's cute?
Yes, that's super cute. That's super cute. I love how you can just come onto a podcast looking cute while also pursuing your PhD. Like,
Okay.
period.
Yeah, now it's the lure, honey, because I'm cute, but on the inside,
Yes.
I'm like, help me, please,
Yes.
help me, please.
Because I looked a mess my entire 5 years. Like I looked a mess. But you look good.
I mean, I couldn't come on page and Dr. Shonda looking a mess. I can't couldn't come on here all week. I've been looking like what I've been through, but today I had to pull it together.
Not looking
Okay.
like what you've been through. I can't. But y'all listen. So Brittany is currently pursuing her PhD. Not only is she a student, but she is also America's #1 sexologist, Christian sexologist.
Hey.
So period. So Brittany, tell the people a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do, and why you do it.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I can answer is why I do it because Jesus made me. Because I wanted to be a lawyer. And he was
Okay.
like, nah, sis, I got something else for you. And so
Yeah.
that's how the intimacy firm came to be. The intimacy firm, I run as a Christian sexologist and licensed social worker. It is a faith-based agency where we empower individuals to discover, navigate, and embrace their sexual selves without compromising their beliefs. That
Mm.
looks real cute on the website, but in real life, I am the representative standing in the gap for all those unapologetically in love with Jesus and sex, even if they aren't having it.
I love it. I love it. So, because when we talk about sex, when we talk about relationships and such, I feel like there's such a stigma attached to it, especially in the Christian world. And if your ears are sanctified right now, listening to this might not be the episode for you. So you can like fast forward or
Yeah,
whatever. But if you read the Bible, you
okay.
know, you might want to stay. But yeah, like I wonder, like, what has been your experience as you do this work and dismantling some of the stigmas that are associated with sex when it comes to the Christian world.
Absolutely. It has been for sure a uphill battle. Literally, my first presentation when I started the intimacy firm, it was called Sex and Salvation. It was with a married singles ministry Sunday school. Like they had a joint Sunday school, and
Mhm.
I taught the workshop. And one of the elders came up to me afterwards, was like, "This was so good, but next time we should do it in the fellowship hall, not in the sanctuary." And it was honestly at that moment, and I don't even really talk like this, but it was honestly at that moment where God was like, "See, this is why."
Mm,
And ever since then, it's been those same things. As much as I have those people who like, yes, please tell me more, is
yeah.
those people who are clutching their pearls and like a woman of God wouldn't do that. And it is that mindset that keeps us bound. And just like you said, use the perfect
Mhm,
word. I work to dismantle
mhm.
those those beliefs. And like in therapy and things like that, the first step is psycho ed. Before we get into treatments and interventions and
Right.
medications and all of that, we start with education. And a lot of the
Exactly.
strongholds that people of faith have or and endure is because of poor education on either the science or
Hmm.
the scripture as it
Hmm.
relates to sex. So that's what I do, is helping people, like, God is in this. He created this. He created sex. And if the
Hmm.
Bible talks about it, we should talk about it. More importantly, we should learn about it. We're called to honor God with our bodies, and you can't honor him with a body you don't know. Because then it's not obedience, it's ignorance.
You starting already.
I mean, you know.
So that means that when I don't take the time to learn about my body, to educate myself on sex, which is what God created, then I'm in disobedience. I'm not honoring God.
Absolutely. And you flat out calling God a liar. On the sixth day, God saw all that he had made and said that it was very good. Humanity was the only thing he said was very good. So for you to ignore it, for you to be ashamed about it or speak about it in a way that is negative, you're telling God he don't know what he's talking about.
Mm. Y'all,
You
ladies and gentlemen, Brittany Broaddus, like this is this is
okay.
the intimacy firm.
Hey y'all.
Hey, listen, yo, oh my gosh, we can go in so many directions. I already feel like this is gonna be like that episode, like that the one that people have been waiting for. But we're gonna get into some rapid fire first. I want to get back into the conversation with like like you said, sex and salvation, like that in itself was just intriguing for me. But yeah, let's do some rapid fire. I want the people to get to know you a little bit better.
Y'all ready. Y'all, I'm nervous. Hold on, hold
Why
on.
are you nervous? You know what, Brittany?
Because you play.
But you should be nervous because the last time I was on your podcast, you was all up and through my business. So this is just payback.
All right, let's go.
No, it's not gonna be that bad. All right. First question: hip hop or R&B? Say it louder.
Oh, I said hip hop. Hold on. I said hip hop, but no, R&B. R&B.
Okay. Why?
I mean, because there is nothing like 90s R&B. Like it is really the soundtrack of, so even given some of its toxicity, it is like the soundtrack of everyone's life. Like it's nothing that you can't get accomplished with Jodeci,
Right.
Drew Hill, all of them, Shy, all of them playing in the background. Now, tossing a little T.I. every now and then, but
Every now
for
and
the most part,
then.
R&B.
Okay. Your favorite love song?
Oh, is that a thing? No, for real. Lenny Williams was like, "Girl, I love you, no matter what." That's my jam.
I love the impersonation. That was so good. That was really good. He's multi-talented, y'all. Like I don't know what to say. Okay. Your favorite date?
Oh, so thus far in my life, the best date I've ever been on, we had a name for it. It was called Crabs, Candles, and Kool-Aid. We went. It was the day after Valentine's Day. We had just started dating, maybe the week or so before. And he got like tea light candles all around his apartment with a blanket and some snow crab legs. He made Kool-Aid, and we just sat and just cracked snow crab legs and just drank Kool-Aid and just talked and really we was only like 7 or so days in, so we really just got to know each other eating crab legs. Messy. I was still in my work uniform, but it was so cute. And to this day, that's the best date that I've ever been on.
Crabs and Kool-Aid?
Crabs and Kool-Aid.
I love
It was
it. I
so
love
dope.
it.
It was so dope.
That might be the name of this episode, Crabs and Kool-Aid.
Hey,
That
listen, it was dope. It don't take much, but that was. I mean, give me much.
that part.
Give me much, but it
Yeah.
don't take much.
Right. And it shouldn't though. It shouldn't like
Right.
take all that to get to know somebody. Like
Right.
I should be able to
Right.
get to know you and vibe out over some pizza.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
people confuse effort with interest. Like
mm,
people, like they confuse it, and they think, and even with the effort, sometimes they it's materialistic, and it's
yeah.
like they don't, the thought behind it, the consideration behind it, the meaning behind it. Like we talk about all the time, intent versus impact. And so, as long as you are intending well, it may not look hashtagable, it
Mm-hmm.
may not be viral worthy, but
Right.
if it meant something for you and it was the quality of interaction that you were looking for,
Mm-hmm.
we got to know each other more in that them 2 hours sitting on that floor than 3 months of time and what I've been experiencing with these dating apps and crap.
Yes. I love that. So y'all, if you looking, Brittany said that y'all can show up to her doorstep with crabs and Kool-Aid and it'll be on and popping. All right,
But
next
also,
question.
and but also,
When was your last date? What was the last date you've been on?
so you're really getting in my business.
Yeah, we want the tea. We want the tea.
Oh my God. I just went on a date. about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that was really
Two
recent.
very recent, 2 Mondays ago.
Okay. How was it?
Hey yo! It was
cute.
started cute. It was cute.
Okay.
It came about cutely. I don't think that's a word. It was good, and then it was one of those things that when it was over, it was like, yo, we don't want this to be over. So it was like a date part 2. But then date part 2 got weird. And then I was like, I don't like this part.
What was weird about it?
I mean, when we first meet somebody, you send out your representative. It's almost like one of those things that is inevitable. Like, even when you try to lean into radical honesty, where it's like, there's a part of you that's not trying to be deceptive, but like reserved for once you get to know somebody a little bit better. And so I feel like that person was at the first part of the date, but then like the regular person showed up at the second part, and I was like,
and you wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I'm comfortable eating here no more.
We got to talk more about that offline. I want to hear about
that. Girl.
Okay, so what was your worst date?
The second part of this one.
Really? That was your worst date ever?
No, yes, it's in the running, but other than that, and this, I know this is gonna be unbelievable, but I promise on my kids it's the same thing. I was Chucky at Chuck E. Cheese for a few years. Yes, yes, child. I lived 1,000 lives. I was Chucky at Chuck E. Cheese, and I did Chucky for this baby's birthday, and then the family brought them back. For the siblings' birthday, but I was just there, like I wasn't working. So they paid me a couple dollars to put the costume on because I used to get busy as Chucky. And so I did that, and then the dad, it was clear that the dad and mom, they weren't together. Like they were showed up. So after it was all said and done, the dad showed me his gratitude, like, thank you so much, gave me a couple extra dollars. And was like, if you ever want to go out, blah, 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 whatever. I was young. So I was like, okay, cool. We wind up going out. I got cute, had on gauchos. So this, how long ago this was, I had on gauchos.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yes. And so we went to Subway, and we got to the register, and he hit me with he forgot his wallet. So I said, okay. Ain't no thing. I'm using your money anyway, because this was the next day. The money he gave me for being Chucky, this is your money anyway, so whatever. So I paid for the food. We walked back to his house. His house, air quotes. We walked back to his house. He acts like he's like, his wallet and his keys are now missing. So he's like, stay right here. Goes around the back, climbs in the back window, and let me in the front door. Up there, we chilling, watching movies. Everything's fine, right? Everything's fine. About an hour or so into the date, we hear. He looks out the window. He's like, oh, shoot, we got to go. The floor that we were on, there was a landing to get to some steps. So we had to climb out I don't know why. He didn't tell me. We had to climb out the back door, out the back window, and from that room, run down the steps and run out the door. And I was moving. He was like, yo, I don't know how fast you can move, but you need to get out of here. And I just ran till I couldn't run no more. And I never spoke to him again. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know who was knocking on the door. I just know he had to go.
Oh my goodness.
I just had to go. But even still, the second part of this last date was still worse than it.
Can we hear more about the second part of the last date then?
Okay, you remember
if you're comfortable, and then I'll talk to you about my worst date.
I'm trying to do it in a way that's like keeping, not trying to cash the gentleman in. Sure. But okay, so did you see my last? I'll just put like this. You seen a post I had a couple of weeks ago about physical touch and how that's not always sexually motivated?
I don't know.
Okay, so that voiceover that's like they're looking and like, where your clothes at? You ever heard that voiceover? Anyway, doesn't matter. I did a post on like when you tell them your love language is physical touch. And so we had that conversation, and he could not wrap his head around the idea of physical touch, physical affection versus sexually motivated touch.
Okay.
And he wasn't getting. And so, as I'm abstaining, and he wasn't understanding it, so I had to go. So I'll just say that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to hear about my worst date?
Yes.
I
Please,
think
can
you
we
heard
get the
this
heat off of
already.
me? Oh,
I
tell me.
think you heard this one already. I think
I
I
don't know.
told
Tell
you.
me again. Tell
Okay,
me
so
again.
this was I was on a date. Yes, because I told you while I was with Jen, and this story always cracks Jen up.
Oh my God.
Jen is gonna be here the last week, y'all. So I was on this date with this pastor,
Oh,
and so
yes. I remember. Girl, yes. Oh my God, I
so
remember.
we was, we were at a restaurant or whatever, just vibing, having good conversation. And then, of course, like Sunday nights, if you ever talk to any preacher, pastor, what have you, you want to hear about the sermon, like what the topic they got to preach about or whatever. So he's like, "You want to hear my sermon for tomorrow?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm thinking he's gonna give me the cliff notes, just a brief synopsis, maybe even a scripture. This man goes into full hoop mode, like preaching at the table at a restaurant, like
I
loud. Like
I would
I'm
have
looking around
died. Do
embarrassed,
you hear
like,
me? I would have died.
Brittany, I was red. Like, I get
Yeah,
embarrassed easily. I don't like
I
attention
know.
on me.
I know it. I can imagine. Listen, I can imagine.
So I'm looking around like, all right, I gotta go to the bathroom. And he's like, no, you gotta hear this part. You gotta hear this part. And he starts going
Not
in
you gotta
even
hear the
more.
part. Oh my God.
I couldn't,
Not you
like,
gotta hear the part.
I'm just like, how can you have such poor social skills that you're preaching to me on a date? Like this.
Here's the thing, like, not only is it inappropriate for the setting, but why do I care about your sermon and we're dating? Like, there's like people who have their kids on their dating app profile. What
It was
it got
trash.
it's substance abuse.
It was
It
trash.
got to be. It has
But
to be.
that's one of those moments that just lives in my head rent free. I always talk about it when anybody asks me about my worst date. And I have to stop talking about it because I'm realizing every time I bring it up, he ends up texting me. It's like I'm speaking him into, like,
Oh my goodness.
I'm like,
Listen,
why is he contacting? Yeah,
and
so
it's what, and my little sister, she'll randomly be like, "You remember you had to jump out that back window?" I'm like, bro, like, why do you? She was like, "I'm just saying." She was like, "And your flip flops got messed up." I was like,
not the flip-flops. Oh my
"You
gosh.
remember?" She was
But
like, "You
those are the
remember?" I
moments,
was like,
like,
That I should have known with the and that stuff like, oh, I forgot my wallet. That's stuff that they talk about on TV. You never expect that
right.
to happen in real life, like the oh, I forgot my wallet trick. But he really, I was like, so now you don't have a wallet or a home because you obviously don't live
Child.
here. I don't know what you were doing here, but you don't live here. Either that or you had a girl,
Something was
something,
going on.
whatever was going on. I was confused and I didn't stick around to figure it out. I had to go.
Yo,
So,
that was wild though, Brittany.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nah, I appreciated that story. All right. What are your non-negotiables when dating?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not having sex and I'm not having no more kids. So
You don't want no more
that's
kids?
no, absolutely not.
Okay.
I got two. Kaden and Carter, mommy loves you, but that's it. Okay. Now, what I did settle with is I'm 34 and I typically date older guys. So the likelihood of them being older than me, not wanting any kids, and not having kids is kind of slim. So
Mhm.
I'm settled with the fact that I may be like a bonus mom to some new kids,
Okay.
but fresh infants, no,
Yeah.
never gonna do that.
You lived that life twice, so I get it. Like you've been through it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it wasn't really rapid fire because I was interested in your answers. Like
Right.
I wanted you to elaborate. But that was
That was
interesting.
better.
Yes. So we got all up in your business. Consider it payback. So we're going to transition into the next portion. We're jumping straight into the topic, y'all. We are talking about sex and relationships. This is our sex and relationship mythbusters. So what other expert would I have here to talk about this than the number one Christian psychologist in America? So Brittany, you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's get it. So, fact or fiction? Sex was only designed for procreation.
Fiction. Fiction.
She said
God
fiction,
intended.
y'all.
That's fiction. There are three purposes that God discusses, or that the Bible discusses, that God intended sex for. Procreation being one of them, and
Mhm.
arguably some may say the most important one, because the first commandment, and God gave Adam and Eve as husband and wife, was to be fruitful and multiply. So
Mhm.
obviously, God likes babies, so we have to, His greatest creation, which is humanity,
Yeah.
is furthered through procreation. So we have that. Then there's partnership. The with leave and cleave, there are sexual implications to that experience of becoming one flesh. There's like the imagery. You imagine the imagery, literally coming together as
Mhm.
one flesh.
Mhm.
And then there's pleasure. Proverbs talks about rejoicing in the wife of your youth. May her breast satisfy you always. May you be ever intoxicated with her love. Yeah, I know y'all. You got a lot of saints that's listening to your podcast, and they don't drink. They don't know what it means to be intoxicated. But when you get into the original language, there, that word is where the word that we understand, erotic, where that word comes from. And so
Mhm.
it's like literally be overtaken out of body with the pleasure that what that is. And even the Passion Translation says your sex life will be blessed. And so that,
Wow. What translation
yeah,
was that?
the Passion Translation says that
Okay.
your sex life will flat out. Passion Translation get
I
hood.
never
Like,
read it.
listen, oh yeah, the Passion Translation is like, listen, get busy, get busy. And so in the Bible, pleasure is not just permitted; it's promoted. And
Mm,
even when we look at like again, like that leave and cleave and the partnership aspect of it, there are different ways, that euphemisms that they use in the Bible, where it says Adam knew Eve
mhm,
and bore us up. Okay, and that's when they talk about that procreation, and there's that knowing part, the covenant, the connection, the coming together, which is different from David lied with Bathsheba. And if
mm.
you know the story of
Break
David
that
and
down.
Bathsheba, so if you don't, David and Bathsheba, I know y'all read your Bible, but real quick, King David, he was supposed to be off in battle fighting. He wasn't. He was in a balcony. He looked down and he saw Bathsheba, who she was fine, and she was bathing. He told one of his handlers, he said, I want her, go get her. And so she was the wife of one of the soldiers, Uriah, he was in the field fighting for his people like he was supposed to do. So David came and he lied with Bathsheba, or he had sex with her. She was already married to someone else, and
Mm,
she was not one of his wives, but he took her. And as a king, she couldn't say no. And so there's also that you already had that power dynamic and implications of
mhm,
sexual assault, because she couldn't tell him, she couldn't consent, because he was the king. She couldn't tell him no. And so so we talk about lie with there's no covenant there. And they also talk about, when we talk about prostitution, like a man will go into a prostitute. And that looks at you hear that language, it's more transactional than
mhm.
the relational language of to know.
To know.
Yeah.
This is Bible. I didn't expect this to turn into like
Yeah.
you getting your whole PhD in like
I'm
theology and all that.
trying. I'm
Like,
trying. I'm trying. I'm
no, that's
trying.
dope. Like, because I never really studied it that way. So
Hmm.
Adam and Eve knowing each other, which speaks
Hmm.
more into that intimacy piece
Hmm.
versus just
Absolutely.
lying with somebody, which is
Yep.
more so surface level. Just you're not
It's more
necessarily
casual. Yep.
right.
Yep. And you lay
Wow.
down no closer than when you get back up, no closer than when you lay back down. But when
Mm,
you know someone, you get up with more. You get up with more information. You get up
mm,
having shared. On the other side of that is a chosen vulnerability, as opposed
mhm,
to Bathsheba was likely vulnerable during that time, but she didn't have a choice in the matter. These
mm.
are two people coming together who've made a decision to be with one another, who've made a decision to be in that space to one another and share that aspect of that of each other. Like, how much more vulnerable are you than when you
Wow.
are nude or naked and inside, or having someone inside of you?
She's preaching already, y'all. I don't know if y'all taking notes. I don't know, like, but you need to be like sis is preaching already. And even like as we talk about this one, and man, this conversation is going so many directions. But I think like when we're talking about like sex and some people believing that it's only for procreation, which doesn't align with the Bible. You talk about like God is sex positive, like
Yeah.
that's your platform. And I really love how you kind of bring that out, and even in this conversation about hearing about the different euphemisms that describe sex in the Bible, like that just further proves your point that
Mhm.
sex isn't a sin. Like sex was created by God. Like the yeah.
Absolutely. And when you think about, so it asks the question, is it the act or the timing? And it's a lot of things that people say, is this sin? Is that sin? And I help them when I do the work that I do a lot of times is values clarification. Because I
Yeah.
say, I'm not gonna be your guilt gatekeeper. When you get to the gate, God ain't gonna ask you about me. He gonna ask you about you. Right.
Hmm.
And so, but because this is a calling of mine, he may ask me about you, and meaning the work that I do, and have I led folks astray? And so it's not my role to tell you what to do. It's my
Hmm.
role to bring you closer to God, bring you closer to His Word, and help you really study. And that studying means critiquing, it means analyzing, it means answering questions. I mean, what does this word mean in general, and then what does it mean for my life? When he says his grace is sufficient, that means there are certain things, there's a walk and a life and a embodiment of Christianity that's going to be different from one person to the next. And that's the same with sexuality, and really being able to understand, what does this mean for me? There are biblical absolutes, and
Right.
then there are preferences, and then there are convictions. And what do they all mean? How do they all come together to make me who I am, and make me strong enough or sharp enough to carry out what God has purposed me to do?
Right.
And
Right.
too often we take our sexual self and put it on the shelf to use at a later date. We don't
Right.
see the sexual self as a crucial part of who we are, but literally we are walking sexuality. We are anatomy, we are physiology, we are body image, we are black women. That is sex. When you talk about black women, when you talk about breathing, when you talk about your body as a temple, and you talk the decisions that you make about to your body, that's sexuality. Everything that you do as
Mhm.
a human falls under the umbrella of human sexuality.
It's a part of our identity. I love that you said that. Yes. Girl, listen, we're gonna have to take up an offering for you. Um, the next question is okay, fact or fiction? Protection should not be used in marriage. So within that union of marriage, protection should not be used.
Ooh, fiction. Big false.
Big
Big
ball.
false. It's so funny that we're doing this now, because I just did a post today, and the lead uh, graphic said, "A condom for what? I'm married," and it
Okay.
was really breaking down reasons that a married person could use a condom. First and foremost, don't everybody don't want to have children, or have already had enough children, and so condoms help prevent, external condoms um, are effective 98% of the time. Internal condoms are effective 95% of the time when used correctly against pregnancy and
Mhm.
STIs. And so some people will say, oh, just use birth control, but hormonal birth control wreaks havoc
Mhm.
on women's bodies, and then Black women in particular. We aren't given the same support in healthcare to help us
Mhm.
navigate that journey and what it means for us. And then never, not to mention, fibroids and other, and endometriosis and other things that we are disproportionately impacted by, that hormonal birth control can, affect. And so I don't, if we don't want to have that in as an experience for our life, then a condom could prevent that. There's also non-baby making issues, like the semen can disrupt your pH balance.
Mhm.
And so you may use a condom to prevent the semen, but the husband may not want to. How can I say? How
You
far can
I
I
want
go
you
here?
to be transparent. I like
All
you
right,
can
he may not want to. He may not want to pull out. He may not be that good at pulling out. Because you think that the pull-out game is strong, and it is very much weak. Okay, but it is very much weak. But and so that semen, like the makeup of the chemical makeup of the semen, can disrupt the pH balance. And when you have a disrupted pH balance, you're talking yeast infections,
yeah.
bacteria vaginosis, a number of unpleasant things. And so condoms help with that. But in addition to condoms, there are other barrier methods, like the finger cot. If you have, broken skin, or
Mhm.
things like that, or other, like if you work in certain areas and you've cleaned your nails really well, but your hands just, like, even like people are just germaphobes, and you want to use finger cots if you're doing any type
What
of
can you
digital.
explain what that is though?
A finger card is like it's a condom for your finger, essentially. It looks like one of those things that folks put on when they're trying to like flip papers or prevent paper
Mm-hmm.
cuts. But you
Mm-hmm.
just roll it down over your finger, and if you're doing any type of digital stimulation, you can use it for that,
Okay.
because what it also does is protect bacteria from trans. So we think sexually transmitted infections. We always think, herpes, gonorrhea, syphilis, but it's just like bacteria. It, in your nails, and if you're using a dental dam, which is like that, sheet of plastic that people use for oral sex over the vulva or over the anus, like there's bacteria in your mouth, there's bacteria in your finger that that you don't want inside of you. Have a very sensitive vulva. Nobody wants that, and so you use it to protect from those things. There's
Right.
also people who have STIs that are incurable,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still living full, thriving, full lives that and are married. And so you want to make sure that you're protecting your partner from the
Yeah.
transmission of those things. So barrier methods help to protect from that. And that doesn't mean that anybody's cheating. Like you could have come into the marriage with an STI. You could have been born into having certain
Right.
things that you don't want to transmit from one person to the next. So the barrier method being just a single person's thing is a big fixture.
Yes. So you're saying condoms and barriers and when having sex isn't just for single people. Like
Correct.
it should be okay. All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, if you want to, it really is a decision. Like it's a
Mm,
decision that you make within. Even on my post, some women said that they, until her husband gets a vasectomy,
mhm.
they're going to use condoms because his semen disrupts her pH. There were a couple ones that was like, I'm not going to do it. I prefer natural family planning, which is the pull out method, or scheduling sex around non fertile days and stuff like that. My math don't be mathing like that, and so that's not anything that I've ever wanted to do. Ask one of my colleagues, ask Goody, she teaches about sexually transmitted allergens, and there are certain fluids that when the fluids mix together, they cause allergic reactions, and so
Mm.
barrier methods can prevent all of those things.
Okay. See, this is why I love having experts on the podcast because it's like you have just a wealth of knowledge and like speaking facts about the human body, not just from like a spiritual perspective, but also biologically. Like we need people in the kingdom who can talk to us about these different parts of our anatomy, our bodies.
Yeah,
So you're definitely a gem, Brittany.
thank
All right, you
you.
you ready for the next one?
Yes, Lord.
Okay. All right. Whew. When it comes to genitals, does
Okay.
size matter?
Oh, Dr. Chanda, get
They
ready to
gonna
give me
cancel
these.
me. They gonna cancel me for
They,
even asking this.
they finna put hate mail on my face. So, when it does size matter, that is the age old question. Yes.
Okay.
And size matters because it matters and not for what you think it means. So, most people are asked that question, does size matter as it relates to pleasure? Like, are lovers, most times the question is asked about penis sizes. Does a bigger penis mean better sex?
Mm,
That's false. However, size matters because body compatibility is a thing, right?
mm,
There are, just like there are different lengths in penises, there are different lengths and widths in construction of vaginal canals.
mm-hmm.
And so there's also differing bodies, like body sizes. And so certain positions are better for different size penises. And so that doesn't mean it won't work. It just means you have to work to make it, and not in like a negative way, like, oh, you got to do extra work, but you have to figure out what works for your body and your
Yeah.
preferences and your interests. And so very deep, like A spot orgasm, which is like that. A spot is the anterior fornix, which is deep in the back behind the bladder between the
Wait, say that
cervix
again. You
and
teaching us something right now. Say it again.
the A spot, which
Okay.
is deep in the back of that's the anterior fornix, which is the deep penetration. That's the orgasm from that deep penetration. And some people don't like that. It doesn't feel good, for everybody. And so someone who's well endowed, or like have a large penis that every time it's fully in, all the way in the back, that may
Mm,
not feel comfortable. So it matters because he needs to be mindful. If he has a partner who has a shallower canal or just doesn't like that deep penetration, he
mm,
needs to be mindful of how he's moving and what he's doing. And same for her. She may, if she's on top of her husband, she can't, sit all the way down. And all of those considerations are important. The unfortunate part is we don't think about sex
Right.
that logistically, right? Because we
Yeah.
think porn has told us that you just come in, your clothes magically fall off, you do all these flips and
And then
tricks, and
it's
everybody's happy, and then you just fall,
mhm.
you just fall out, and you climax at the same time, or worse, it doesn't matter if she climaxes, as long as he get his, everybody's good, and
Mhm.
as long as the camera just focused on the penis, everybody's
That's what
happy.
society. I'm sorry. Say what you were saying again, Brittany.
No, you're right. That's what society tells us. Pleasure is, and Goody says this all the time. Pleasure is penis shaped. And that's the unfortunate part. And so that's why size matters, because you can craft what works for you, and you foster that culture of sexual excellence or sexcellence in your marriage by being able to understand this is his body, this is my body, and this is how we navigate them together. Though but there is not one body type that is more
Yeah.
capable of pleasure provision than the other.
Okay. I love it. Okay. So I got another question coming from that. But before we get into that, I believe in transparency. So I love how you're pulling me out of my comfort zone by having this conversation, because I don't know if you can tell, I'm turning red. I'm like
Yeah.
in my hand.
She said,
I'm trying not to
like, genitals.
But even when you were talking, like, this is great information, but I'm trying not to smile like I'm a teenager. Like, what is going on with me right now? Do I need to analyze myself? Like, why am I so uncomfortable about having these conversations? Like, what's
But you wouldn't be alone. Like, and as a believer, and we don't want to wake love before it's time, and we, got our blinders on, staying focused on the word. There's this what I say all the time to my folks on my platform is, you don't have to sin to be informed. And that is
say that
what,
again.
you don't have to sin to be informed. It really is a commitment to, like we said earlier, learning your body and learning the ways of sex and sexuality, and learning sexuality beyond, as Dr. Lex says, beyond the first three letters. And so
Mm,
people hear sex and they think penis and vagina penetration, they think fluids, they think, noises and hair pulls and, WAP and uh, face down,
not why.
backside up, like Ludacris said. Like, they think all the, thong song, tip drill, like that's what comes to mind
Tip
when they
drill.
think. That's what comes to mind when they think sex, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And so if we normalize this conversation, like if we can say penis without whispering, vulva versus vagina, like, that type of
Yeah.
thing, that removes the seeds, that plucks up the seeds of shame. And
Okay.
so then when we pluck up the seeds of shame and we remove that cloak of darkness, the enemy has nowhere to hide. The enemy has nowhere to play. So we're just having normal conversations. So when I say finger and foot, nobody bats an eye. And we
Mhm.
continue to have these conversations in these spaces, in faith-based spaces, saying this is what God says. And though we may not be able to say specific, God doesn't say, put your mouth on this penis. No. However, he establishes bodies as good. He establishes, marital autonomy. He establishes the importance of pleasure and,
Mhm.
and things of that nature. So it's okay to have it, because God talk about it, we can talk about it. And then he rule. If you believe him to be a sovereign God, then you
Mm,
believe that he rules on the social science as much as the theology, the
that
medical
part.
field, as much as the mental health field. If
That
he
part.
said he reigned on the just and the unjust. Okay? And so you want to keep them in the box of just the 66 books, you don't serve the God I serve. Okay?
Come
Because at
on.
one point, with just the 66 books, at one point there could be a place where you have arrived, where you can figure it out. I don't want to serve a guy who I got all figured out.
Uh,
I like, okay. I want to continue that pursuit of
yeah.
knowing him forever, until that point where he returns. And I also know that he didn't call me necessarily to the four walls of the church. Like, I'm not called
Mhm.
to preach in that way, but I
Yeah.
am very much called by God. I may not be passing out tracts, but this is very much my great commission. Go
For
ye
sure.
therefore he said, into all nations.
All the
So that
world.
means the medical field. That means the work that you're doing for, mine's for the culture. Like, you know what I'm saying? In the
Yes.
mental health field, like, and you being a Black woman, like, doctors are, what is it, like 1% of the population are doctors, and
It's
then
crazy.
less than that are Black doctors, and then Black woman doctors. That's not by accident.
Mm.
That's not by accident for you to be a doctor that looks like you, speaks like you, speaking to the people who you are speaking to. And
Mm.
you are doing God, you're doing the will of your father through mental health. And whether
Yeah,
you use the DSM or the book of Revelations, you're still doing the work of the Lord.
that's so good, yo. That is so good. All right. So, with that being said, I'm going to practice. Okay. I'm going to ask you another question and I'm going to say
Okay.
it. All right.
Go
So,
on.
going back to penis size, I didn't
Okay.
finish.
Oh,
I didn't finish.
say it. You did. Go ahead.
So, going back to penis size. So, before we engaged in this, before we started the podcast, we were having a conversation about how that's often associated with one's self esteem and how, like, some, even though we might have the conversation that size doesn't matter in that regard, there might be men out there who may feel like they're not well endowed and feel like, I'm gonna leave it at that because now I'm starting to turn red. So go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh well, I'm finna rock your little world then. So here's the thing with penis size and well being. That is a symptom of, or an ill, if you will, of toxic masculinity. There is
Mm,
one way to be male. There's one way to be masculine. It is to be of a certain height, a certain complexion, a certain penis size, a certain voice inflection, make a certain amount of money, have slept with a certain amount of women,
yeah,
desire sex a specific amount of time. And toxic masculinity says that men need sex. Nobody needs sex, right?
mm,
Toxic masculinity says that, and hip hop music and a number of other things say that 9-inch penises are the way to go, and that mandingos are these freaks of nature that needs to be put on pornography and paraded around, like, and commercialized
yeah,
for consumption, right? And if you have below that, then you're less than a man. So then what happens is, instead of saying I don't feel good about myself because my penis is smaller, whatever that means, relative, then
yeah.
I'll rather say to women, she don't have no walls,
Mm,
she loose. And so the vagina is a muscle. And so just like you don't wear out your arm by doing this, you pick up groceries every other day. Your arm ain't wore out, your arm ain't get loose. So the
educators.
vagina functions in the same way. So women are taught to carry the weight and the brunt of all of the ill shortcomings, the sexual shortcomings of
Yeah.
men. By some way, somehow, it's the woman's fault if she doesn't, if she has, as opposed to saying this. And the reality of it is, the science say, the stats say that in America, the average fully erect penis is 5.5 inches, which means most people,
Mm,
because average means the majority. The majority of people are walking around with a penis that's 5.5 inches. And 5.5 inches, I mean, that's not little, but that ain't no ruler. Like everybody likes to walk around thinking that they have. And then here's the other thing: women are also taught to disregard their own pleasure and be
mm,
wet and willing, but don't want it too much. And then stroke his ego and make him feel good about it. So then we have women who aren't really feeling what's happening sexually, and they start faking it. And
mm.
so when you fake it, you're giving false affirmation to, and so now he's, and this is not about the saints, because the saints don't have sex, right? And so he then leaves you, the non-saints. They leave you and then go to someone else and do the same thing with the false confidence that you done gave them, because you was in there hooping and hollering and you did not feel no thing,
No
right?
thing.
And no thing. And that's what happens. And then men also
Mm,
are socialized to believe, because of toxic masculinity, there is one way to be good at sex. And a lot
mm,
of times it's that pounding, humping, and every woman is going to like it. And so because one woman climax, they think that they can do the same thing with the next one and not really tune in to say, what is it that you like? And this is where I say all the time, your
that
orgasm is
part.
your responsibility. So if he comes in trying to do what he's been doing and you take it, and you don't
That's your
feel
business.
pleasure,
Like,
that's your fault. You know what I'm saying? That's your fault. And so really what I want folks to realize is that your sexual resume only qualifies you for the current job you have. You go to a next job, we entry level all over again. That resume does not go. The only thing that you can carry from one partner to the next, and this is like, saved or not, because there's times where we want to hold on to guys, we want to, abstain, We want to get married and be married with that person for the rest of our lives. But sometimes that doesn't happen. And so people have experiences. But what makes you a good lover that you can transfer from one to the next is your ability to listen. That is the primary sign of a good lover. The ability to listen, and then of course, consent. That's it.
So you saying you can't use the same cookie cutter method on? Okay.
I mean, you can try. If she doesn't like or he doesn't like it, then you need to say, well, what is it that you do like? I mean, you can use it as a starting point, as a reference point. Like generally, most women need clitoral stimulation to climax. So that's information that you can carry from one place to the next. You know, the frenulum on a male, the underside of a male penis is very sensitive. And so stimulating that.
Okay, good. Okay, the frenulum. What is that?
Yes. So, okay. So it's like when you look, okay. So this is the penis. So this is the penis. I don't know how to do it. This is the penis. And the head is like this, like the little mushroom thing where all of the skin comes together in the back, and that little V underneath it, like the underside of it, that area right there, that's the frenulum. And it's a collection of nerves, and it's very sensitive. So if you like use the thumb area, like this crease here, and you're stimulating there, similar to how you do with the clitoris, it's stimulating. It's very pleasurable because of that collection of nerves right there. So that information, the science of it, you can take from one place to the next. So, but though frenulum stimulation may help with an orgasm, your husband or your particular partner may not like it, or may not like that much pressure, or may like a little bit more pressure, or may not want to feel, may want you to nibble on it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So there's certain things that you can transition from, certain facts that you can transition from one person to the next, but skills are different.
So
and
you have
ultimately,
to ask.
you got to ask. Absolutely, that's it. You have to ask. Open your mouth. My girlfriend, sexologist Samara, says, use your mouth to ask questions and then provide information.
I love it. I love it. Brittany, you're gonna be so proud of me. I'm almost at the last question, and I'm not turning red anymore. Like I think I'm becoming more comfortable with this conversation.
I'm quite proud. I am so proud.
No, but you're really educating me right now and the listeners too. And I love how you're saying like you don't have to sin to be educated, basically.
Right.
Like I think we spent so many years, especially in like Christian communities, demonizing sex, and it's a sin until we therefore we can't talk about it, we can't be educated about it until we're married, which is not true. Like we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our future partners to be able to like know about these things. So I'm appreciative of this conversation, even though it's uncomfortable, but you but listen, you dropping gems, girl. Okay, last question. Sex is the only way to experience pleasure. Fact or fiction?
Fiction.
Okay.
Oh, that's such a good question. And it's one of the most pervasive myths that, I work in or encounter with the clients. I work a lot with Black Christian women who are single and trying to figure out, how do I do this singleness thing? But yet they have these like really deep emotions and lamenting about like kind of lingering in the single season. And it is because they feel like the pleasures of the world are reserved for a marriage. So they have not quite arrived yet. But sex is just one way to experience pleasure. And when you think about marriage, I was married for 9 years. Sex is such a small part of the joys of marriage.
Yeah.
Sex is such a small part of just marriage in general. The amount of time you'll spend so much more time being married in other ways than you will being married and having sex. And so is sex pleasurable? Absolutely. Are orgasms popping? Baby, it's literally an incomparable feeling. There's literally no feeling. Like, you know how like on the other spectrum, there's no feeling like a toothache. There's no feeling like an orgasm. Okay. So I know that we're gonna have that. However, we have 5 senses, right? And some of us, I mean, some may not have access to all of our senses and not, hold space for that. But whatever it is, we have more than one way of experiencing pleasure. And so folks leaning into sensuality over sexuality is really how to get those pleasurable things. So what in your curating your space so that it smells good, curating your, your home, decorating your home so that it looks aesthetically pleasing, so that when you come, like, how like you walk into a house and it's like, or a hotel room, and it's all, and you like, all the weight, like the stress of the world is kind of hop up off your shoulders. And in the same way, if your space is in disarray, it keeps you, stress. Pleasure is, it's in the same way. Like, what smells good, what looks good, what feels good on your skin, right? What sounds good, like what tastes good. A lot of times we eat in a way, we're supposed to say we shouldn't live to eat, we should eat to live, which you want to, health is important and that kind of thing. But also, I just wanted something that tastes good. I have taste buds for a reason, and I want to enjoy, and give yourself permission to lean into those things, and don't wait for anybody else to give it to you. That's the other thing that a lot of single women battle with, is they love, like, I love flowers, and I signed up for a monthly flower subscription. I get a fresh bouquet of flowers delivered every week. I love flowers, and I'm not about to wait to be in a relationship to get my flowers, because then it makes me question: do you want the flowers, or you want somebody to give you the flowers? Like, where's your interest in? To be able to say somebody bought me flowers, or do you actually like the idea of flowers, or do you like flowers at all? And Hollywood has told you that getting a bouquet of roses is the bee's knees, right? And so that's what seeing pleasure outside of sex does for you. It helps you to clarify your turn-ons and turn-offs, which aren't just
it's not
sexual.
Yes, I love that. So you mean to tell me, if I love crabs and Kool-Aid, and I get me some crabs and Kool-Aid, that's pleasure?
That is pleasure.
Okay.
That is pleasure. And you turn on a good movie, light you some candles, put on your fuzzy pajamas, whatever, or your glove, like whatever you do, and just rest in there and be like, this is dope.
Yes.
And be cool with it.
You know what, Brittany? I feel like if more people, especially women in the church, were more educated about like what pleasure entails, and like how we can experience pleasure by ourselves without having to rely on somebody else, I think more people will be more content in their singleness.
Correct. Because they wouldn't feel like they're missing out. That's a lot of, we feel like it's that FOMO, right? They're missing out. Like and so that sends people racing down the altar to marry people that they don't even really know, or that they don't even really like. They that put like soul seeds of like discord between the married and the single, because you got something I don't, and that's not that deep. Like, Valentine's Day is getting ready to come up, which means we're gonna get the whole slew of, it's just one day, you should be celebrated every day. Like, but here's the thing, ma'am, sir. If you had somebody celebrate you on Valentine's Day, you wouldn't be saying this right now. And so don't like being able to be, Paul said, I've been a base and I've been about, but I've learned to be content in all things. And so pleasure and living like I talk about, living a pleasure fueled life is like joy. It's a state of being. It's not fleeting like happiness. It's not, it's not fleeting like those type of things. It is a resting place. Like peace. It is a resting place. And so everything that I do, every decision, when we say all the time, like, don't do anything that doesn't serve you. That's pleasure. That is giving yourself permission to live a pleasure fueled life, because I don't like, this person takes away from my peace. So that's not pleasurable. This food is nasty, so I'm not going to eat it. This restaurant is too slow, so I'm not going to give them, I'm not going to give my money. This sweater makes me itch, so I'm not going to wear it. Like, those, like that type of thing. Lean into it in the Lord, and be developing that habit of curating your yeses as much as your nos. That'll serve you they'll serve you at work. So you're not just taking whatever they give you, and you're advocating for yourself to get the money that you should be getting. It'll serve you among your friend group, so you're not in this cycle of people pleasing. And it'll ultimately serve you in the bedroom, so you can say things like, it's the clip for me. When he's down there flailing around, like, where's Waldo with the clitoris? You can say, honey, it's the clip for me. I knew it was coming.
I tried to hold it in, Brittany, but no, you're making such great points. And this idea of pleasure being a state of being, that's so good.
Yeah.
Because like we make pleasure like it's something that somebody has to give me, that I have
Yep.
to, continue to, I have to do things, or people have to do for me in order to receive it, when I
Yep.
literally just can choose to live a life of pleasure. I don't have to wait
Absolutely.
on anybody for that.
Absolutely.
Girl, you
Absolutely.
know
It's
preach
your
today.
birthright.
Yeah.
It is,
Oh, say
as
that
a
again.
child of God, pleasure is your birthright. He came not that we
Mm.
might have, not just that we might have life, that we might have it more abundantly. And it said he exceed, like we serve the God that exceeds abundance. That he does exceedingly abundantly above. So, like, a lot of times people misquote that scripture and say exceedingly and abundantly. No, he exceeds abundance. So
Abundance.
when you think
Wow.
about your pleasure, living abundantly, and then as a child of God, go beyond that, exceed it even the more. It is your by your sheer existence. So I don't care what you've done, I don't care where you've been, I don't care what your history is, your track record, your body count. I don't care nothing about how many kids you got, what your social economic status, none of that. You, by your sheer existence on this earth, you have the birthright of pleasure.
Girl, you said a whole word. I feel like, again, like you are anointed to dismantle
Here you
this,
go. Here you
all the
go.
systems that are keeping us like in bondage, basically. And I, even earlier in the podcast, you called it a stronghold. There's a stronghold, a special assignment that the enemy has for us not to be educated. The
Absolutely.
people perish for the lack
Absolutely.
of knowledge. Like that's why it's so important to have people like you in this field, in this industry, doing it and being the number one at it. And I'm not just saying that
Yeah.
because y'all can Google my girl. Um,
Google me, baby. Okay.
Google her. So, Brittany, you have been a gem. Like, I cannot thank
I
you
love
enough,
you.
girl. I'm gonna definitely let you go because I know you in school, you getting that PhD, you got homework. But our last segment is typically the Ask Dr. Chanda segment. You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so I got a question for you. It was sent in by somebody in our text community. And you guys, if you haven't joined the podcast text community, all you gotta do is text podcast to 21000. That's podcast to 21000. All right, so the question says, in today's society with social media, parents, religion, all applying pressure when it comes to the married with children narrative, what are some ways someone can stay positive and not let it tear them down? Great question.
Well, that is a great question. I'm supposed to answer that, or you want to answer that?
No, I want you to answer it.
You want me to? Oh, okay. Because it said ask Dr. Chanda, so I wasn't sure.
Well, you
But
helping me.
so first things first, you need to understand and ask yourself, do you want that?
Mm,
The worst, that the most anti-pleasurable thing is trying to live a life that somebody else has for you. Is
mhm.
marriage and children a thing that you actually want? And so, especially for women, it's this thought that it's just like because we're born, we're supposed to want to be married with children, or we're supposed to want to be a mother. We're supposed, like, you know what I'm saying? So you have to establish for yourself: is this anything that I want outside of those pressures? And then also be able to realize, like, parents may mean well and all of that, but they're not putting in on this.
Exactly.
Raising children is expensive, right? And everybody needs to mind their own uterus. Okay.
Mhm.
And and move in that way, but the pressures are real. Ultimately establish what it is that you want for yourself, and then share with those people, again, with pleasure, not allowing people in your space that put that unnecessary pressure on you. So if it's
Mhm.
media and things like that, curating what you watch and what you like, this
Exactly.
is super, this churchy, your mind, your ear gates and your eye gates, all of that kind of stuff. If it's parents, listen, mom, dad, auntie, my mom, I'm not having this conversation with you anymore. And if they bring it up, then you're an adult, so you have the
Mhm.
opportunity to pull back. Like, you don't
Yes.
have to, and it's not a sign of disrespect to say, "Hey, thank you, and I appreciate your concern, but this is not a conversation that I'm willing to have anymore. When I'm ready to move into that step in my life, I'll let you know." And then let that be that.
I love that. Simply because like in our community, especially, like we have such a hard time setting boundaries with
Okay.
parents and aunties, uncles, all that stuff. But when we say things like that, like, I'm no longer interested in having this conversation with you, people have no other choice but to abide by our boundaries.
Okay. Or
Or
actively show that or what you do then is you put them in a situation to either respect your boundaries or
mhm.
actively disregard them. And so now the ball
Yeah.
is in your court. Do you want to continue a connection with someone who actively disregards
That's so
your
good.
boundaries. And that
That's so
doesn't
good.
mean you got to cut your mama off, because people like, I'm not about to cut off my mama. But it's this false narrative that because they are our parents, because they
Right.
are our family, we have to deal with them. You do not
Mhm.
have to. That there is love, and there's affection, and there's
Mhm.
care, but there's also distance. Okay, you can love
Yes,
them from a distance.
from a
You
distance.
do not have to engage. Okay, love don't guarantee access, and
Yes,
neither does familial ties. Does not guarantee
come
access.
on. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brittany Broaddus.
Soon to be. Come on,
Yes,
you do it, Jesus.
listen,
Lord, we
that was
see what you have done for others.
I'm calling you doctor because like you already talking like you wrote somebody's dissertation or whatever. I'm proud of you for everything you're doing.
True. I'm proud of you
Yes.
too.
Thank you. So can you tell the people how they can support you, like what you have going on and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So we are right in the thick of submission collection for My Vulva and Me, Volume
Amen.
3, which is our anthology series for, by, and about Black women. We're on the third volume. This volume is called Dear Mama. First
Yes.
volume was just a free, Black women writing their hearts and their stories and poems. Last volume, they wrote letters. Black women wrote letters to the little Black girl inside of all of them. And this
Love
time, we're
it.
writing letters to our mama. That
Can't
Black
wait.
mom daughter relationship, that's whew,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
interesting, and I don't think that we on a mainstream, folks have not really unpacked that
Yes.
relationship in a real way. So that's what we're doing. I know this is
Yes.
going to air in a couple of weeks, so it's open. Submissions are open until March 1st. If you have a letter to your mom, your stepmom, your godmom, your adopted mom, anybody who is a mother figure in your life that you need to write something
Yes.
to, by all means, write that letter, send it in. And other than that, if you want to kind of unpack some more of the things that we talked about today, I have a workbook called Understanding Intimacy, a Believer's Guide, which is available on my website, theintimacyfirm.com. It helps you unpack those things, the science and the scripture of sex relationship and God's heart for sex relationships and intimacy. And it has spaces for you to really kind of process, like, hold up, who am I? What is my circles of sexuality look
Mm,
like? What do I want? What am I interested in? What has my past? How has my past shaped my outlook for the future? All in one book. So
yes. Yes. And I have that book, so y'all need to get it. And I gotta submit my submission for the book, the upcoming book.
yes,
So
yes, ma'am.
yeah. So I'm excited though for your future, Brittany. Like
Thank
I know
you.
you're gonna be
Oh,
on own with your own
woo!
show
Lordy
at the
Jesus.
Essence Fest. Like I just can't wait to see it unfold for you,
Now, hurry
Dr.
up, 'cause my
Brittany.
lashes fall off and I'm about to start crying. Now, come on.
No, we're gonna wrap it up here, y'all. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast. Make sure that you text podcast to 21000. Connect with my girl Brittany, the #1 Christian sexologist in America. And
Yes.
make sure you
Period.
remember, period, sis. And make sure you guys remember you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. We wrap that up at the end of every session, at the end of every I was gonna call it a session, but it feels like a session today.
Episode. Yeah,
Yeah, it feels like a session. But
that's
I'm
cool.
going to say you have the power to create the pleasure that you want to experience based on the conversation we had with Dr. Brittany. All right, y'all. So I'm going to catch y'all next week. We're going to be talking to Anthony O'Neill. He's going to be talking about securing the bag in your singleness. All right, y'all. Have a great night.